and put our head gasket on. I made sure everything was clean. This is the spacer plate gasket. It's a metal gasket. It's going to go like so. We want to make sure all our ports line up. There's no voids. Then I need these O-rings. One's going to go there, one's going to go there. And look at the plate. Okay, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put my spacer plate and my gasket in there. There was 2 O-rings in those spots underneath the plate I missed. Oh, I did put them in there, so I'm going to snug these down to make sure that it pulls the liner and the plate down to make sure it's snug. You want to do this essentially on all your cylinders. And then what we're going to do, sled gauge here, and I'm going to zero it right there. Come over here and measure. Got to hold it down tight. And there we've got about 1/1000th. I'm going to come over here, do it here. I've got about 3 there. The spec in the book is 2 to 6. So there, I'm going to zero it again. There, I've got about 2, it looks like. I'll do it there, 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 so on and so forth. You get the idea. You're only allowed a couple thousandths variation between cylinders. Okay, I'm looking in the service manual, and basically they want us to bolt down the cylinder head in 6 places all the way around it. I only did 2 over here just to give you an idea of what we're doing. To do it properly, that's how we need to do it to make sure it's tight. But here's your measurements, so 1, 2, 3, 4 different places. And we come down here, and here's our specifications. So we're allowed 1 to 6 maximum liner protrusion. And then the maximum variation in each liner is 2/1000ths of an inch. So between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and so on and so forth. This one's really close to that. And then the maximum variation between all liners is only 4/1000ths. So if we have one at 2, we don't want it more than 6 on any of them. So that's a super important thing to check. The other thing we need to check is our flatness of our plate and our block. I did the block earlier. But there again, I'm going to bolt this down in 6 places around each liner, so I'm going to get shorter bolts and do that. And then I'm going to take my straight edge, and I'm going to take a flashlight, see if I can see light between the 2. If I can see light, then I'm going to get a feeler gauge and measure it. You're not allowed very much, about 2/1000ths maximum warpage. So I'll check it there, there, and there. And then I'm going to take and measure here, 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 and here. So that's how you check your cylinder block to see if it's warped. To take my bolts out here. So to do this properly, I need to do 6 bolts all the way down. But you can see what I did. I just found a head bolt. We got some shorter bolts. I'd say I need a whole pile of them. Now what I could do is I could bolt 6 here, and then move to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. It would be better to bolt it all down, but that's how they want it done. There is an O-ring here and here underneath the plate, and there's also one that goes on top. And then these water washers, this is where the coolant comes through. It seals it up. Oil comes up these other 2 to get oil to the cylinder head. So they're kind of important. If they're not there, it'd be bad. So once we get these in here, we'll install our head gasket and our cylinder head after we check our cylinder head for flatness and all that fun stuff, and clean it up. It's pretty simple. Most of the time, if you're doing these, this deck plate will get replaced because they do warp. Some are made, they're just just how they are. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing with our cylinder head here. Go here, 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 basically in between all the intake exhaust ports. And then we're gonna come here in the center, wherever we can get that we're not hitting stuff. Basically 4 places there to make sure that it's good and flat. If it's not flat, it's going to leak. So, all right, could take some exhaust valves out, but most of you guys are just going to replace heads. So now we'll go ahead and put our head on. Okay, we're going to go ahead and install our cylinder head. It's not picking up very straight, so I'm going to use a bar to straighten it. I need to get square with it. I could use some guide studs or something if I wanted to. I'll come down here and watch and make sure that there's 2 dowels I got to line up with. 1. Nice and easy. Now we need to put our head bolts in and torque it down.
Alright, we're going to torque our head down. Start in the center. There's a pattern. 1, 2. 3, 4. It's a 2-step process. Torque these down, and then we're going to do the outside ones after we put the rocker shafts on.
Torquing 180 and then 330 because they're lubed. We've got to put our valve bridges in first. We've got E1E, so that's exhaust, so that'd be this one. The way to tell is you line up the exhaust port with the valve. That tells you which one's which. Also need to adjust these. Intake, exhaust. We've got labeled 3E and 3I. So exhaust is this one. Takes this one. You don't ever want to adjust these on the engine. Basically what you do is you put them in a vise, loosen it up, bring it over to the engine, set it on here, and then take it back to the vise and torque it. If you don't, you'll bend these pins, and then the first time you go to actuate a set of valves, you could potentially bend the valve bridge guide and the valves. Okay, I go through and torque all my head bolts. I haven't done these or my overhead yet, but I got to set my valve bridges first. So what I did is I took this over to the bench and loosened this up. You don't want to do it on here because you will bend the bridge. The floating bridges are a little nicer, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this down until it just touches, and then I'm going to turn it 1 hex or 60 degrees. I'm going to snug that there. I'm not tightening, I'm just snugging so it doesn't come loose. Now I'm going to take this over to the vise and torque it. Okay, I'm going to torque this with my torque adapter if I were to put it there, it's going to over torque it because I'm changing the length of my wrench. If I were to put it there, that won't change the torque. If I put it there, it'll under torque it. If I go there, it'll be just right. So I'm going to torque it right there. Okay. Now that's ready to put back on the engine. Like I said, don't ever torque these on the engine. And this is not something we do during a normal valve set. Okay, we got to put our push tubes in before we do that. You can roll them to see if they're straight. That's one intake, one exhaust. And basically just roll all those, make sure that they're straight. The other thing you can do is drop it, and they'll ring differently when you do that. Concrete floor works better. Hear that rung? If it were bent, it would make kind of a thunk noise and wouldn't do that ringing thing. Okay, I put my rocker assemblies on. They're kind of a booger. You got to hold everything, make sure it gets in the right place. But these are also head bolts, so we need to torque those down too. Okay, my push tubes. Now I dump some oil down in there. This goes in here like so, and if there's oil in there, you can actually feel it picking up the push tube or the lifter. If you look down in here, you can see the lifter down there. And I grab a hold of this, and I can actually pick that lifter up with the push tube. Okay, I need to get all the push tubes started on the rocker shafts. That can be kind of a bear. Once they're all lined up, then we can go ahead and torque everything down. Kind of a trick. The other thing we can do is put oil in here to help hold it in there. Creates like a stiction to it, kind of like this. So now it'll stay on there. That'll hold them in there long enough that we get it torqued down. We just torque them down normally like we would the head bolts. Okay, we're gonna make sure all these are seated now that they're in there. See, these are loose because we're on valve overlap on, or not valve overlap, but top dead center there. And then I'm gonna look down through here and make sure all of them are in the correct holes, which they should be. Yeah, now we can go ahead and torque it both. Same as the head bolt torque. Thing is to go from the inside out. Make sure that we torque them evenly. Next setting, which is 330, I believe. Anyways, we're going to go like this. Just go back through, check them all, make sure I didn't miss any. Those thing you do is mark your head bolts so you know which ones you torqued and which ones you didn't. I didn't do that. I just ran through and checked to make sure they torqued. Torque turn, you definitely want to do that.